Hi guys, and welcome back to Tangy Tea of Life. This is a special Tangy Tea of Life. Miss Redina Salmon McQueen is back, licensed counselor, supervisor is back with us to spill some more tea tonight. And this is a special edition because Miss Redina invited me into her home tonight. So welcome back to Tangy Tea of Life.
Thank you so much, Veronica, and thank you for all the viewers. They have been, coming in and checking out the topics, that we've already discussed.
Right.
The one on depression and also anxiety.
Yes.
And again, as you just said, Veronica, this is a special evening because we are going to be talking about PTSD, known as post-traumatic stress disorder.
And that's a big deal. So we're definitely going to go ahead and jump into that. So guys, I want you to pay attention, listen, and pay attention to this special edition. Like Miss Redina said, thank you all so much for pouring your hearts out. The last topic, depression and anxiety. Thank you all so much for your support, and thank you for reaching out to Miss Redina. You had questions and left comments and all of that. Thank you so much. So we're going to jump into the PTSD topic for tonight. All
right. Post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD, impacts not only men, but also impact women. Back with World War I and World War II, PTSD had a very negative connotation. You may have even heard some people may have said, that person is shell-shocked, and they associate that with a person that has been in the military and active war. But as you would find out even tonight as we share more information, and of course as some of you out there, other viewers have already been impacted probably by PTSD or know someone that has been or have been Googling it and finding out more information. Awareness again is the key on tonight. When it comes to PTSD, as we said earlier, it is a mood disorder, a major mental disorder, that actually is impacted by individuals because of the psychological shift and the physical shift that individuals encounter. It is caused by reoccurrent mental and physical distress that a person will undergo because of some past trauma. A lot of individuals that have difficulty with PTSD actually may have nightmares. They may have crying spells. They may even be violent. So it's very, very important to understand the dynamics that are associated with PTSD. One of the things we want to say also that it impairs an individual ability to function. In their homes, even with their life skills sometimes. Some people actually encounter a big struggle with that because, again, it does affect the memory. It'll affect their relationships, how they interact with different people because of the level of irritability and also the level of interest that they actually have in certain things. With PTSD, just know that it can be addressed. With PTSD, just know it can be managed by effective coping strategies and also oftentimes medication. With PTSD, the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Health Disorders, the 5th edition, actually categorizes PTSD as a trauma and a stressor that's related to things that may have happened with a person's symptoms that is acute stress. And it happens, something may have shifted their mindset and they have difficulty like for a whole month. So it won't be something that may happen as we talked about with depression and anxiety. You may see a shift for 2 weeks. A person has encountered this for actually a whole month. And there are a lot of individuals that go around for a long length of time and not be diagnosed because, again, the stigma. And that's the reason why we're talking tonight, to try to remove some of the stigma so that individuals that really need the help that's out there in the community, that they can seek that help. With post-traumatic stress disorder, it happens after a person may encounter a violent, actual interpersonal situation. Oftentimes, it not just war, but it could be something of a sexual assault. Some people actually encounter natural disasters like a flood, like a fire. They may have actually seen someone killed or know of someone that have died by homicide or suicide. Those are some of the indicators for individuals that are struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder. There are some people that have actually been in some horrific car accidents or have known someone that have been in a horrible car accident and have encountered trauma. You say, well, can it be even related to, let's just say, even a separation or a divorce, depending on the degree of some things that have happened with the mental distress, emotional distress an individual has. So it goes on different degrees and it depends on the individual. So there's no cookie cutter when it comes to post-traumatic stress disorder. And just keep in mind, just think about it. PTSD, post, that means after. Mm-hmm. The stress that has actually occurred, something that has been traumatic, and the disorder is not just one thing. So there are a lot of different things that are involved. It could be the biology, it could be genetics, it could also be the environment and whatever they were exposed to. When it comes to post-traumatic stress disorder, you want to keep in mind that one of the biggest symptoms is the psychological. When I say the psychological, that's when individuals may have the nightmares, and they are recurrent. It's not just a once or twice thing, they are recurrent. And they may actually feel as if they are reliving the event. Those are the indicators also with post-traumatic stress disorder. It's something that is recurrent, also the arousal stage, and in addition to that, avoidance. These individuals that are struggling with PTSD actually go out their way to try not to think about it, but the sad thing is it keeps popping in their mindset. Right. All right. One of the other psychological dilemmas individuals face is flashbacks. They have vivid flashbacks of actually whatever happened in that traumatic state that they were encountering. The other thing is intrusive thoughts that just start popping out and just seem as if someone is talking to them some of the time. And it can be very, very frightening because again, they are re-exposed to that trauma. And it can be triggered by anything. It can be a smell. It can be something that someone says. It can be an actual location that they may go. So they may try to go out their way. Individuals that are struggling with post-traumatic stress, in addition to that, may feel guilty that they have done something. Or they may really have struggles in dealing with not forgiving or blaming someone else for some of the things that may have happened. And you can tell them all the things in the world that may seem like this is not your fault. Right. That is a hard concept for them to even process. Individuals that are struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder may encounter behavior changes. That's another indicator. When I say the behavior changes, again, they may try to avoid everything that may remind them of that particular traumatic event. Mm-hmm. Again, those environment situations that may even come up. And as a result, they may end up having some feelings like hyperarousal, without even thinking about it. It's like exaggerated, responses that they may even encounter, and from the smallest little trigger that can even happen. And it may say, that shouldn't bother them. Again, it's an individual basis because it's based on some things that have happened, and it has shifted the brain chemistry because the event that they have encountered has really been traumatic. The other thing is some individuals encounter hypervigilance, like they are constantly on guard, easily startled, on high alert, not just alert because of their surroundings, on high alert. And as a result, because of the physiological things that they're going through and the behavior changes, it interrupts sleep. Oh. A lot of individuals don't want to go to sleep. Right. And they are afraid to go to sleep because, again, those nightmares. Yeah. Anything that they can do to avoid those nightmares. You may see a person that probably didn't even drink before may start drinking and may start drinking high volumes. You may even hear of individuals that started using different types of substances. Sometimes they're saying they want to quiet the voices down. They want to forget about whatever happened. If they were traumatized, especially early on in their lives, they just want to forget. And of course, a traumatic event of that nature, say for instance, if a person was raped, right, sexually assaulted, physically beaten, and again may have witnessed some of that even from a parent or a friend, they may want to forget that, but may really have a struggle. So you may see a lot of these individuals may use substances and not just use them for like a week or a month. They may use them for a very long time because that's one of the ways that they have learned, despite the situations and despite what we say and despite even support, but they have learned to cope and just trying to make it through the next day.
So that's how people get hooked on
A lot of people end up being abusing drugs, abusing even medication that has been given to them. A lot of these individuals would have to have a sleep aid to help them to sleep. And if one or two pills is not working, they may end up taking multiple pills in one setting. Some of the individuals in a course of treatment may be given antidepressants known also as SSRIs, and they may be prescribed medication to help with that depression because it's associated with PTSD, and you may find them, just taking even more. Again, they're trying to numb. Individuals that are hypervigilant may actually be given medication for anti-anxiety, and again, you may see some individuals actually abuse those substances because, again, just think about it, they just want to forget whatever that traumatic event was.
So that's how they cope with that. Do they have to get on prescription drugs?
They do not have to, but a lot of the individuals, depending on the degree of their trauma. One of the things you want to keep in mind that, our brain is just an awesome mechanism, but when it comes to post-traumatic stress disorder, it actually affects three main chambers in our brain. The brain stem that controls our basic needs, the basic things that we have to have survival. Then the limbic system, which, controls, our emotions and regulates, those types of things that goes on those feelings that happens. And then finally, our frontal lobe, our prefrontal lobe. If you want to do this, it kind of resembles, your brain stem is here, and then here with your limbic system here, kind of the reward pathway you were asking about. That's how some people get hooked on it. They remember something that made them feel good. That happens here in the limbic system. They remember something that helped them to forget. That happens here in the reward pathway with the limbic system. And at that time, your prefrontal lobe, which is right here, your executive functioning, that with your thoughts, with your reasoning, your rationale, the things that help you think through a situation, that part of your brain is not functioning. So as a result, what happens is, most of the time, what's supposed to happen is we are thinking, we are making logic of whatever, and when we experience these emotions, then of course, then we can think about some of those basic needs that, really fall into place. But when a person is exposed to trauma, it flips it in reverse. So an individual is on a survival drive. That comes first. Then those emotions kick in. And of course, when the reasoning part starts happening, it's like they've already acted or reacted.
Right.
So a lot of the times, some of these individuals also may end up, with an arrest record because their thinking processes have shifted. Okay.
So what happens if a person don't get help for PTSD?
Person, again, that does not get help for PTSD, a lot of different things can happen. One of the main things happen, they start pushing people away. Their support networks start crumbling. Again, we talked a moment ago about substance use. A lot of them get involved with substance use as a result of their desire to numb. Not because they want to get high, not because they want some type of relief.
Yes.
They don't want that physical pain. They don't want that emotional pain and that mental anguish. They don't want to experience that. A lot of times, often, you may actually see some of these people that may end up actually even having some symptoms of schizophrenia. So again, not only they are having the mental disorder with the post-traumatic stress, but then they may have actually some other mental health issues that are going along with that. And sad to say, you may see ex-military individuals, as well as these people that have had some sexual trauma or physical abuse, being homeless. They are out from shelter to shelter, kind of having a roaming mentality, going from place to place because they're very restless. These individuals, again, having problems sleeping. When you are laying down sleeping 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, they are up.
Right.
They are up for days at a time.
That's sad. So what should a person, if they feel like they have the symptoms of PTSD, should they first reach out to a counselor, to a doctor, to...
One of the biggest things with PTSD, because it does affect affects a person's mental status. It also affects their physical status as well, and they can have some other conditions along with them. We tell everybody, seek a primary care provider. That's very, very important. Getting a medical doctor to do a complete physical on that individual, and of course, with the counseling field in an arena, some individuals may have to see a psychiatrist because, again, they have to be prescribed certain types of medication, and a psychiatrist can tweak that medication to balance it off for that individual. In addition to that, therapy, of course. One of the therapies that's used with individuals struggling with PTSD is exposure therapy, and you have to really be very careful in doing that, again, because some individuals, they're on high alert so much that even the proximity, how you and I are sitting tonight, some individuals, that will be a great difficulty for them to do. And you have to respect those boundaries and respect that perimeter. So again, with exposure therapy, that's the type of therapy that they are slowly exposed to some things that are associated with that trauma, to help them learn some coping strategies, but they're in a safe arena and they know they are safe. That is very, very, very important. The other type of therapy that works very good with these individuals, to include individual, because there are some things that in an individual setting that individual may talk just to their therapist about and won't feel comfortable in other settings, but in group therapy it works really well. One of the reasons why it works is because they see that they're not alone. Right. They actually see other people battling the same thing that they are battling, and that is very important. The other thing is very important for individuals that are struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder is support. A support network is definitely important. They do in the Florence area have different support groups. They do have psychiatrists that are in the area, and as you shared with them before, I'm an employee of Hope Health. One of the beautiful things I love about Hope Health is the fact that provide an array of services, not just the medical services for the individual, but we also have psychiatric services there. We have the counseling services there, even as referral based, we also have case management services there at Hope Health as well. But not just Hope Health, there are other entities here in the area, and we do ask you to reach out. There are private practices all across the city, and if you are really struggling and if it's acute, we're telling you, please go to be seen. Don't be afraid to go to McLeod Behavioral Health, to seek some help, if it's needed. If a person you see is struggling, and if they are even thinking about suicide, it's very, very important that we get some help. Go to the nearest emergency room. We do have the Florence Center, of MUSC that's here in the area, along with McLeod Behavioral Health, which was known as Carolina Hospital Setting. So there are emergency rooms that are available. Also, there are a lot of doctor's care. So I'm just saying there are an array of opportunity for individuals. You say, we can't even get there, but even in rural areas, they do have medical care. So we are pleading to the community to be supportive. We're talking to the churches too tonight. Yeah. Be supportive, because that's one of the things that can happen to individuals is trying to connect. Right. They have to learn to connect and be in a safe environment.
So all of this stuff, listening to all of the symptoms and the support system and all, it seems like all of these mental health, issues
or disorders. Okay.
Yeah, disorders. When you're talking about anxiety, and when you're talking about depression, PTSD, it's like all of those combined.
But those are different types of mental disorders, depending of the individual. Absolutely. Because a person that, may be experiencing anxiety may not be diagnosed with PTSD. A person experiencing depression may not be diagnosed with PTSD, but oftentimes than none, an individual struggling with PTSD you will see depression. Right. You will see anxiety, because they're on the different poles of each other. Yeah. A person that has a very, very low mood, whereas the other person is hypervigilant, very, very restless, worrying all the time, and sleep plays a big part in both of them. One of the things, if an individual doesn't sleep, their brain chemistry is not going to balance. An individual doesn't sleep, there are certain cells in our bodies that do not settle, that do not reciprocate, that just don't balance if we don't get our sleep. So we have to get sleep. Right. The other thing I do want to say is when it comes to children, there are children that, sadly to say, that have been exposed to trauma early on. Some that have been victims of sexual assault, molestation. And it's really sad. Yeah. But the thing about it is they need help. One of the things, you may not see some of the symptoms that you may see in an adult with the sleep, with the child. Some of them do struggle with sleep. But one of the things of even with the hypervigilance, you may see a child at a school that may be acting out. And family and school may think that is the problem because this child is displaying behavior problems, but the root of it is it could have been something else along with it. The other thing, and we do have licensed play therapists here in the area, which is just phenomenal. And the Florence area just has an array of providers that you would not believe. One of the things we want to say in reference to children is that sometimes children that are struggling with trauma may actually act out the trauma when they are playing. They may be playing with a doll. They may be playing with trucks. They may be playing in the sand, maybe playing on a playground. And you may see them being really rough. They are actually oftentimes acting out what has actually happened. If you notice a child that may not regularly go in the bathroom, really struggle and to the point of crying and not wanting to lie out, parents, caregivers, listen. Please listen. There are different things that may have happened. Ask questions. Talk about it. Let them feel free. But if you think for a shadow of a doubt in your mind that they need to see someone, please do. Again, we have licensed play therapists here in this area. Also with Hope Health in conjunction, the care house is there for children that have actually been exposed to some type of childhood trauma. So again, there are some specialty locations that you can access those services.
And speaking of the kids, not only what they have experienced, how about going through like right now at that moment? Like they could be acting out what they're going through at home.
Absolutely.
So like teachers and everyone that come in contact with the kids, they really need to be focusing on that.
They need to be focusing. Another thing is communicating. They have so many awesome ways now to communicate with educators. It's awesome, through email. Yeah. If there's something that's going on, if there's a teacher that's even, or an educator that's viewing this, we do ask you to communicate with those parents. And in addition to that, excuse me, parents, communicate with the educators. Communicate is vital.
And the thing is, if it's the parents that causing the trauma, you know what I'm saying? Like how that child, that's what I'm saying, that teacher or aunt, uncle need to be paying attention to what that child is really trying to say, because they may be scared to just come out and say it.
Absolutely. One of the things here in the state of South Carolina, teachers as well as counselors, policemen, we are called mandated reporters. If we suspect, we report. Right. Because we just don't know.
Right.
And if it's not founded, but then at least something has been done. Something has been done.
So that's PTSD. Wow. I learned that because I didn't understand what exactly. I mean, I've heard of PTSD many a times. This lady I used to work with, her husband, he was in the service, and he was in the time when war was going on, and he can't take when a door is slammed.
Absolutely.
That makes him go into a whole different place, So I mean, I've heard of PTSD, but not really, heard of it getting broken down like this.
And that's one of the things that we try to do in the counseling field is when we're talking about these different diagnoses, is to talk about them in a way that any individual will be able to understand what's going on, and it's imperative to share about the symptoms so you can know what to expect, you know, because when an individual walks away out of an office of a counselor, they need to walk away with more understanding and insight. And in doing so, to break the information down so it makes sense to them.
Right.
Again, one of the things, 3 things that I often share with clients is a lot of the times that when we don't want to feel that pain can be physical, that pain can be emotional, and that pain can be mental anguish. Again, associated with some type of trauma. You don't want to feel. That's the thing, you want to numb out. A lot of individuals, when they first start using substances, may just, you know, use because they've seen someone else did it. Later on, you know, because it's a social thing and you just have fun along with it. But when an individual is prescribed medication or something is going on wrong and they just want things to be fixed as you will, they will abuse those substances to the point that they are having to use it every single day in order to function. When an individual gets to that point using it every single day, and if it is prescribed medication, they're not followed by a physician, they're headed for trouble.
They dependent on that drug to make it.
That's what happens. They're dependent. They are physically dependent on whatever it is. When they get to the point that they're physically dependent and they're trying to hide it, and they get to the point of using it all day,
right,
every day, that is addiction. That is severe substance use. So again, please watch individuals, ask questions, be supportive, try to remain non-judgmental, and take a step back. And what would you want someone to do if you were in that case? Oftentimes that could be a question to really ask.
Right.
So again, you know, it can be managed with effective coping strategies and also with medication, because again, we want to remember that the brain has taken has been shaken up. It took a bout, if you would, and because of that, you know, the person needs to step back for things to balance back off.
Wow, that's a lot of information. Thank you so much, Ms. Redina. We're going to have you come back, talk about another topic, hopefully.
Of course.
But tonight, guys, we was talking, the subject was about PTSD. So if you or someone you know is going through PTSD or you think you have the symptoms, be sure to reach out to someone for help. Now, Ms. Redina, can they call that same help hotline?
Absolutely. Well, the help hotline that we did put on before was the one for suicide. And again, you want to keep that in mind, because if an individual is talking about it, if they talk about the intent to harm themselves, if they talk about that they have a plan, please listen and call that hotline. Dial 0 if you can't dial anything else. You know, I mean, dial 911.
Right.
Get some help for that individual, because if they're talking about it, saying they have a plan, saying they have a tent, and if they have a means, saying that they have a gun in the home, please, that is an indicator that you really need to watch out for, and it's very, very serious.
Right.
We want to make sure that, you know, you all just, you know, honing onto those things. Again, mental health now also has an emergency alert team that actually goes out if anything is going on, you know, with a mental disorder, that you can contact. So again, reach out to some of these agencies that are out there. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right, get help. Don't be ashamed. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for Tangy Tea of Life. Ms. Redina, thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming back and inviting me into your lovely home. Thank you so much. All right, guys, please like, subscribe, and leave comments below. And if you would like to be a guest on Tangy Tea of Life, leave your information on our email at tangyteaoflife@gmail.com, and don't forget to click that bell so that you can get notified for our next video. All right, guys, see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.